Ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. Somebody come look at this. Look at this.
Neither left but never left. And if you have any doubt, see what is happening in Niger, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, in Mali. They are alive and well. And Africa remains the only continent in the world that is still referred to as Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone, and now we are beginning to even call it Russophone and Sinophone and Indophone.
Hello fam, welcome to another day on Mindboss TV, and today we'll be reacting to Professor Patrick Lalumba. He's a Kenyan and he's an activist. I love him very much because I find him to be very inspirational and influential to me anyways. And I like the way he talks and I like the way he delivers things, and always having Africa and African growth at heart and in mind. He's a very straightforward man and very, very highly educated. And I like his mindset. So with no time to waste, let's go get it. This is going to be a 3-part series, meaning I'll drop the 1 and then later I'll drop the 2 and the 3. So please bear with me and take note. And please don't forget to leave me a comment. Leave me a comment so that we can reason together. Because 2 minds are reasoning together can walk together. So let's go get it. See you on the flip side.
I'm a great opponent of lengthy introductions. Let me start by thanking the pastor and his wife, and also appreciating those who have spoken before me and those who are present to listen to our presentations. Without you, we would be talking to ourselves. There is a sense in which much has been said. If it is the history of the continent, slavery that has been mentioned, if it is colonization that has been spoken to, if it is neo-colonization that has been spoken to, if it is in describing the continent of Africa as having been divided so very arbitrarily in Berlin in 1884 and 1885, that has been spoken to. And we have been told so very correctly how that continues to bedevil the continent of Africa and to undermine our attempts at unity. Those of you who are students of history will remember that in 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and in 1964 in Cairo, Egypt, the debate was, should we redraw the boundaries? It was agreed by the founding fathers then that that would be an exercise in fueling conflict, and that if we were moving towards unity, then redrawing boundaries was unnecessary. The OAU was, of course, founded in 1963, a weak organization which, as it were, introduced the concept of inviolability of boundaries and placed emphasis on sovereignty. We have been told that that could very well be the reason why Africa's growth has been stunted. There are those, and there's them who has told us so very effectively that upon consultation with the gods, he has been told very useful things, and the gods are right in the revelation that they have made. The gods are right in saying that we have suffered in many ways and continue to do so, and that therefore the post-independence African country or countries are bedeviled by many things. That could be a reason. It has also been said that part of the reason why we have not realized our potential is because we make the wrong choices. And that could very well be true. And my brother, who spoke about choices so very well, told us that it all rests on the choices that you make. And you who are Christians will remember that at critical moments, even in the Christian tradition, it has always been a question of choices. If you read the book of 1 Kings at chapter 18, when there is conflict in that little place called Israel, Elijah summons them and says, choose you now. If Baal is God, bring the 450 disciples of Baal and the 400 of Asherah who dined with Jezebel. And if God is God, let him be worshipped. If Baal is Baal, let him be worshipped. Perhaps that is the reason why we are where we are. We never make the right choices. We choose Baal when we should be choosing God. There are those who have said possibly, and you see this choice if you read the book of Joshua chapter 24, when he calls the Israelites and tells them, choose you now. Do you want to worship the gods whom your ancestors worshipped before they crossed the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell? As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. Perhaps we are not serving the gods, and that the gods are angry. And in the anger, they continue to visit pain upon us. So there is a sense in which all and many things have been talked about. But Africa sometimes judges ourselves very harshly and with a jaundiced sense of history. The post-colonial African state, the oldest post-colonial African state is Ghana, 66 years only. Nigeria, 63 years only. And we often forget these very important and immortal words of John Henry Clark when he said that all African countries, upon regaining independence, started to conduct their affairs on the basis of systems of governments that were borrowed from Europe, and that none of them will ever succeed on the basis of borrowed systems. And as if he were a Jewish prophet, he is being proven right on a daily basis. Because whenever we in the African countries think that we have identified the problem and that we have identified the antidote, when we apply the antidote, new wounds appear. That has been the state of Africa, and that continues to be our state. And therefore, when we judge Africa, we must ask ourselves, from whose lens are we judging Africa? When in 1965, the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah wrote the book Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, and the Most Dangerous, he was right, and he was overthrown for it, because the colonizer left but never left. And if you have any doubt, see what is happening in Niger, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, in Mali. They are alive and well. And Africa remains the only continent in the world that is still referred to as Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone, and now we are beginning to even call it Russophone and Sinophone and Indophone. There is a sense in which we must never forget this, so that when we are judging Africa, we ought to judge her on the basis and upon the realization that the headwinds that stand on our path are numerous, and that there is no shortage of fifth columnists within our ranks. The SMO spoke, and if the SMO were to speak a little longer, he would have reminded you of what Chinua Achebe said in Things Fall Apart, that they came and put the things that held us together, and we can no longer reason as one. And he said, we may have sent the white man away, but what about our brothers whose minds they have infected and infested? And there is no shortage of them. So Africa can and will arise. And if you look at the continent of Africa, she has always been conscious of the need to do right things. And if you look at the continent since 1963, and I can remember this so very vividly, I can remember Kwame Nkrumah in 1957 on the 6th of March saying, the freedom of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. He says the same thing in 1958. He repeats the same thing in 1960 in Casablanca, Morocco. He repeats it again on 25th of May, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where he tells the 32 heads of states gathered there, we must live here with one army. We must live here with one currency. We must live here with one foreign policy coordinated. And I even suggest that we can have a capital, and I suggest Bangui in Central African Republic because it is the most central. But we listen to him not. After that, of course, we have had our gains. Under the aegis of the OAU, Africa was able to eliminate apartheid, South Africa. Under the aegis of the OAU, Africa was able to chase away the Portuguese in Cabo Verde, in Angola, in Mozambique, in Guinea-Bissau. Under the aegis of the OAU, Africa was able to chase away the apartheid regime in what is now Namibia and the Ian Smith regime in what is now Zimbabwe. Let us not judge ourselves too harshly. We have made our mistakes, but sometimes it is proper, as my sister said, that we see half full glass rather than half empty. We must not debilitate ourselves by constantly bashing ourselves and looking at Africa from jaundiced eyes from Europe and America.
Hello, welcome back. I'm just going to give some few points here about the speech you just heard. And I hope you enjoyed it and it was very inspirational to you too, just as it was for me. But well, I just want to put some little on top so that we can move on. But well, basically what he was talking about was making the right choices. Like he was choosing the right leaders, choosing the right people to govern, choosing the right influential people to lead the continent. But that's where basically he said, like when Elijah was he asked them like which God would they choose to follow, whereby they had to choose. But if you choose the wrong ones, as we have been doing in so many times in Africa, that's where we are. But at some point too, you know, are we right candidates? That's why most of the time we Africans, we make mistakes. We go again back into our tribal instincts, our tribal mentality, our tribal doing things. We vote for leaders not because of what they can do for the country or whatever, but it's because of our relations to them. And thereby we choose wrongly. Instead of putting that aside and actually finding a leader that has the country at heart to do something good for the country, no, we will go for what our tribal leaders say, and because what our fathers have always voted for this person, our fathers have always gone this way, so we are also just proceeding without it bearing any fruit to your fathers, but you are just continuing the cycle. And also him talking about Africa is still distant, even though the whites left for some time back, but have they actually left? Have you ever thought of that? Isn't it ironic that if you go to India, they still speak their language, they dress their same way, they dress the way their fathers have always dressed, going back into centuries. They speak their language, they speak English is just a second language there. But here in Africa, we are so stuck with English, Portuguese, French, God knows what, Spanish, and so name it all. We have them all. We can't even communicate with each other without using a foreign language, a language that was given to us by our colonial masters, which is very sad. As we were saying, the thing that holds us together has been pulled away from us. So thereby we are broken. And until it is mended, we can never grow or be together as one unit. And the thing is, it is not going to be given to you lightly. Just as he mentioned, some African countries who are still fighting this battle, even to today. Yes, they have left, but they are still not gone. It could be they are not standing in front of you, but they are standing behind the person in front of you. So we shouldn't be so harsh judging Africa for what it has become, because the thing is, the people who are in power are not in power because of the people. They are in power because what? They've been placed there. They've been in power because what? They are basically there for their own selfish gains. And even though if they know what is right, probably they won't do it. Probably they won't do it. And the thing about it is we always compare Africa to other Asian countries like Singapore, which got their country, there's their independence just as Ghana did around the same time, just a few months between us. But look at where they are compared to where Ghana is. But the thing is, the Asian countries were left to thrive on their own. But with Africa, the whites were still there because they needed the raw materials to benefit, to enrich their own country. So even though they left, and they also knew that we were easily manipulated, very easily manipulated. Look at all these African leaders that have been assassinated within time. If you want, I can drop a list for you. But think about it. We are very easily manipulated. We are so gullible. But anyways, I'll leave it there, and I'll give a total summary up when the whole 3 series is gone. It's gone through. But anyways, this is the part 1, and I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for part 2. See you on the flip side.